Hello and welcome to our first episode of The Little Inside. My name is Tobi and today I'm here to share a few things with you that I found to be incredibly helpful and beneficial on my spiritual path so far. Now, this week's episode is coming from a question that I've received last Sunday, and the question is, will I lose all of my emotions once I'm letting go of emotions? That's a very good question. I'm receiving it pretty often actually, so let's have a look at it right now. Now, I'd like you to imagine this huge prison. It has an infinite number of cells. However, these cells come in only three different types. You have the pleasant cells, you have the unpleasant cells, and then you have those neutral types of cells. Okay? Now, if I would ask you that question, where do you want to be? What would you answer? So, of course, most people answer here and say, I'd like to be in the pleasant cells. Some they say, I'd like to be in the neutral ones, in the standard ones. And so far I've had no one say that they want to stay in the unpleasant ones. So we have these three types of cells, plus the question, where do you want to be? Okay? Now it's a very few people that think outside of the box, quite literally. And they would answer, do I have to be in prison? Or is it possible to be outside of prison too? Or I don't want to be in prison. Okay? So it's very rare that someone thinks outside of the box. Of course, I've asked you the question, where do you want to be? I didn't ask you, in which cell would you like to be? See, I was a little bit tricky there. Okay? Now, considering that, we might understand a little bit more about the nature of our emotions, the pleasant ones, the painful ones, and the neutral type of emotions. Let's have a look into that. So there is one of those quotes that have been listed frequently as the heart of the Buddha's teachings. Now that quote is, translated, nothing whatsoever should be clung to or should be adhered to. Okay, so you have this quote that says you should stick to absolutely nothing. Alright, so what does that mean in terms of our emotions? When we see it from the standpoint of sticking to something, then we can also quickly understand our prison example. We are tied or we are bound up with something. So once you are tied to something or bound up with something, then whether it goes up or it goes down, it pulls you right up and down with it. So this is the nature of course, let's say a painful emotion. When a painful emotion comes into your being, then if you stick to that painful emotion, your being turns into a painful being. Does that make sense? Now also, if your being is invaded by a happy emotion, say there is some conditions around you that cause a happy emotion inside of you, then what happens? Now you become happy. Your being turns into a happy being. And if nothing much is going on, or if your being is neither painful nor pleasant, then we are abiding mostly in a neutral type of state. These emotions, however, they are just visitors. They're just passing by, actually. They come into your being as a visitor, and then they leave your being later on. And there's a fact, you actually cannot hold any single emotion in your beingness. And here's what I would like you to actually try, to put it to the test. This is nothing really, it's not a matter of believing what I tell you or studying or philosophizing about it. This is something that can be put to the test in very practical terms. Sit down when you're having an emotion the next time, whether it's pleasant, painful, or neutral. You sit down with it and you give it some space. Listen to it. Really experience it. And after a while of having experienced it, ask yourself whether you can make it stay, if you can hold it, if you have so much power over your emotion that you can keep it there indefinitely. If you want to keep it there for an hour, you can, without any problem, keep it right there for an hour in this kind of static way. Try if you can do that. See if you can do that. See if it works, okay? So you might be feeling a certain way as a response to watching this video right now. So look at that feeling right now, in this moment. The way you feel, is it rather neutral? Is it rather pleasant, or is it painful? Now, so you're looking at yourself right now. So you've turned your eyes to the within. This is what spiritual practice actually is all about. Turning your eyes to your heart. Looking at yourself, not looking out there, not looking at things that come and go, but really finding a stable center inside of yourself that is unshakable. Now this center, once you have found it, you will discover something quite beautiful. It is released from all the, you can say maybe from all this entanglement of emotional states that come and go. It is totally free from those things. So you can say it is outside of the prison. It is unbound. So the instruction that the Buddha gave in one of these discourses to not stick to anything, to completely let go of absolutely everything, is not a pessimistic instruction. It's not like, okay, everything sucks, don't hold on to anything, just forget everything, everything is bad, the world is a rotten place, right? It's not this kind of instruction. It is rather pointing to something that is infinitely more powerful and beautiful and happy than any condition could ever be. Well, conditions in their nature, they're impermanent. They come and go. They're kind of like they're visiting your being. Whether it is a thought form or an emotional form, these things, they come and go. Now, if you're not sticking to anything that comes and goes, you're not only super present, but there's also a sense of bliss in that. It's a form of release, of relaxation, of having arrived, of not running, of not chasing anymore. Much like when you had a hard day's work and you come back home and you're released from that stress. You're finally home, you have arrived. It feels good, doesn't it? So this is that kind of happiness that comes from letting go. It's a very special type of happiness. So you're not really losing any happiness by letting go of all types of emotions. In fact, you become more independent, more free, and more happy as well. But it's a different type of happiness, much more powerful, much more spacious, you can say. So to summarize that little talk in a simple way, if you're holding on to something, there's tension. No matter what you're holding on to, it's heavy. Something sticks to you. It's a very crowded place. But if you're finding space, if you're releasing the world, if you're releasing life, if you're allowing things to be, there's a very special type of presence, a very special type of healing happens in that space. And this is what I would encourage everyone who is on a spiritual path and practices in any way internally, to look for that space, to look for that release, to let go of those things that we're habitually holding on to. And of course, this requires a whole lot of practice of mindfulness, of waking up to our current state and to become a witness to those things that arise and pass in our beingness. So I'm offering this for your reflection. This is something to consider, to put into practice. This is something to experience, actually. It's not so much to think about or to philosophize about with your friends, even though that's nice. But it is something that should be experienced for everybody. I am working on that experience, and I invite also you to work on this experience and enjoy the state of beingness that doesn't stick to anything. So I hope this was in some way helpful and inspiring for you. I'd like to mention that you can find some links that are related to the topic that I was talking about today. You can find it in the video description below. And you're most welcome to comment below the video and maybe ask questions. Maybe you have some questions personally, and or write me an email at info@phuketmeditation.com. The address is also below. Everything you can find in the video description. And well, I'm looking forward to next week's discussion, and hopefully there will be some nice questions coming up. And I wish all of you the best from my heart. And yes, see you next week. Bye-bye.